A very warm welcome to this event on apprenticeships and the twin subjects of green and digital transition. Thank you very much to everyone for joining today. We're absolutely delighted to have you all here. This is the first day of our two-day event, and today we're kicking off with a live discussion on skills for the green economy. I'm Andrea Broughton, I'm a director at Ecoris, and I'll be moderating and guiding you through this first live discussion for the next hour or so. So just a quick bit of housekeeping at first. I'm told it's best to view your screen in full screen mode. So if you click on the icon at the top right-hand corner, where it says floating panel view, that'll give you the full screen view. Please keep yourself muted with your camera off, and please feel free to post questions to the speakers or comments in the chat. We'll have a question and answer session later on to address the questions from the audience. This live discussion is it's meant to be a sort of round table conversation between four experts who represent different EAfA stakeholder groups. And we want to have a conversation about skills for the green economy and to create a space in which new insights and ideas can be shared and discussed for the benefit of the apprenticeship community as a whole. So this afternoon, there are going to be two back-to-back live discussions. This first one on green skills and apprenticeships, and then after this, another one which will be on digital skills and apprenticeships. The event then continues tomorrow with a high-level event that includes keynote interventions from European Commission leaders, in particular the Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights, Nicholas Schmidt. So this live discussion on green skills kicks off with a welcome from the European Commission from DG Employment. After that, we will engage in a dynamic live discussion with our eminent panelists to explore key issues in terms of skills for the green economy. And then finally, we will have a question and answer session and a chance for you to share your views with us. To all of our participants watching, as I've said, please feel free to leave comments or ask questions in the chat during the event so that we can ask these questions to our panelists towards the end of this session. So I'd now like to introduce Norbert Schöbel, who is team leader for apprenticeships, vocational education and training and adult learning at DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. So Norbert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea, very much for your introduction and your kind words. I'm very pleased to be with all of you. I think we have a record participation today. If the figures are right, we are above 1,000 people who at least have registered and wanted to join this discussion. This morning we started, actually our commissioner started the European Vocational Skills Week in Luxembourg. It was a very interesting discussion together with the Minister of Education in Luxembourg, also the Chamber, some young people, apprentices, and also the ambassador from Luxembourg from the European Vocational Skills Week, who said it's never too late to do the right thing. And there was a strong focus on apprenticeship the whole morning, which was considered to be as a real model, not only as a dual model for apprenticeship, which is the transition from school to work, but also as a model for the whole VET sector. That was a really interesting message. I will not talk about COVID-19 today. I will not talk about terrorist threats. Let's more talk about positive things and our future. And as Europe moves, and hopefully very soon, away from the COVID exit strategy towards normalization, we all hope so, our recovery will indeed need to build on the twin ecological and digital transition. As Andrea has mentioned, we are focusing on the two topics. I have the privilege to start with the first discussion as a speaker on the greening, on the green transition. But I also have the privilege to announce you already now for the second part, our head of unit, Chiara Iondino, will speak about the digital transition, which is as important. The digital transition, we have already last year started a discussion in Helsinki, last year's at the European Vocational Skills Week. This time we're talking for the first time in the context of the European Alliance for Apprenticeship about the greening. And in a way, because of the fact that it's all online today, we in a way also contribute to the greening of our planet because there's less traveling. Yeah, we would have been, many of us would have been in Berlin today. So we also have less CO2 consumption. Now, the European Green Deal in the Commission is our priority. It's actually a growth strategy that aims to transform the EU into a fair and prosperous society where there are no net emissions of greenhouse gases in 2050, which is quite ambitious, as you can imagine. I hope also that the latest developments in the elections in the US will help us to have a strong partner on the other side of the Atlantic. Now, focused, of course, you need the right skills for these green jobs. They are the precondition to make the transition to a sustainable economy happen. We have some forecasts that show that more than 1 million jobs by 2030 are linked to the decarbonization process, both in the industry and in the services that traditionally employ vet graduates. If I may just give you an example, the Commission's renovation wave strategy to improve the energy performance of buildings. And I mentioned this as an example because we have many alliance members coming from the construction sector. Could, by 2030 as well, result in 160,000 additional green jobs created in the construction sectors. Of course, the transformation towards a climate neutral building stock will only be possible if the existing jobs are transformed to include green and circular skills in and if the new job profiles emerge. So today we can already recognize and we have recognized skills gap in a number of sectors, such renewable energy, energy and resource efficiency, renovation and buildings, construction sectors, environmental services, and manufacturing, and so on. The Commission continues its work on skills for the Green Deal, acknowledging the importance of developments on green skills and employment and vet provision relevant to a circular economy. Of course, these new green skills can range from very technical and job-specific skills to softer ones, such as responsible use of resources, which can be relevant across occupations, levels of hierarchy and sectors. It can also translate into new skill sets or even new qualifications across education and training levels. Now, to boost know-how, and we're not talking about only apprenticeship, but also worker skills, the Commission will work together with the member states and many stakeholders through the skills agenda, and tomorrow the big event, the launch of the Pact for Skills, but also through our funding mechanisms like the cohesion policy funds and the just transition funds to finance training and retraining. A few elements which I think are important to mention, that SMEs play a particular role. They should be given a better access to information about training and apprenticeship programs. Social partners and chambers have solid expertise in skilling and reskilling, upskilling of workers, and should be, of course, involved to achieve our goals. The green transition also needs to be just and has to pay special attention to those workers and regions particularly affected. I think we can all agree that creating an inclusive and accessible working environment is needed, and we need to overcome prejudices. That's very important. I think we also, when we look at the vet, particularly the sectors, then we have to think about the role of women in traditionally male-dominated sectors, and that this is also very important. Now, what can the European Alliance actually do? What can the employers, what can trade unions, what can vet providers, and what can apprentices do and contribute from the apprenticeship angle to make this green transition happen? Let me first say that I'm very happy that many of you have contributed when we launched the survey ahead of this event, and some of the contributions we will of course circulate. Some of your contributions will now be reflected during the live discussion, because we have, I think, very interesting speakers joining the Alliance, and I would like now particularly thank all those who have contributed so far, and we will in the Alliance of course be committed to make an important contribution from the Alliance to the greening of our economy and our society. But now I would like to give the floor back to the moderator so that she can introduce our speakers today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norbert. So I would like to introduce our four speakers now. So first of all, we have Barbara Archesso, who is Project Manager of Life Foster at ENAIP Net, and that's a skills project led by an Italian network for vocational education and training, aimed at reducing food waste in the restaurant industry. Then we have Chiara Palazzetti, Project Manager at Formazione, which is an education and training provider operating in different economic sectors, including environmental protection and renewable energies in Italy. From EAfA member EPSU, we have Richard Pond, who is Policy Officer at the European Federation of Public Services Unions, EPSU, which is a trade union representing workers in the energy, water and waste sectors, in health and social services, and local, regional and central government. And then finally, we have Stelina Hatzichristou, who is an expert at CEDIFOP, the EU Agency for the Development of Vocational Training, and which is a long-standing EAfA partner. She is also author of the Skills for Green Jobs report. So welcome, everybody. To begin and to set the frame of today's discussion, I think it's important to ask a fundamental but very important question. So I'm going to begin by asking Stelina and Barbara, firstly, what are, in your opinion, the key skills for the green economy?
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be part of this discussion. Indeed, setting the framework for a definition is the first step for any type of discussion and analysis. And although the green skills and jobs have climbed up the policy agenda in the past years, there is no, let's say, unanimous definition across all member states or all policy analysts about what exactly they regard to. However, of course, as the policy documents from the European Union, but other organizations really delve into how we can improve the transition to a greener economy evolves, we can claim to have, let's say, two broad categories of green skills. It was mentioned actually just now by Norbert Schrober. There can be green skills that are more job specific, more technical, one can say. So for the renovation wave, in the specific occupations that will be included, what are the specific skills that would allow a person, which is usually a graduate in these occupations, to implement the, let's say, new material, new techniques that would lead to a better and quicker and more efficient renovation or building of new buildings, etc. So this is very job specific, and in order to identify these particular skills, it's very, very important to have an effective skills governance arrangement in place so that there is timely information from employers and trade unions to the curricula and occupational standards. At the same time, as has been highlighted in all policy documents and discussions, the greening of the economy is not a way only of, let's say, producing and designing our products and our services. It's a way of living, of being a citizen now and of course in the future. So there are the, let's say, more general green skills linked to sustainability, to the way we as European citizens understand the road to sustainability, of behaving as consumers more sustainably, of making choices in a way that will promote a circular economy. So I would say broadly that these are the two main pillars of what green skills are. And in order to make a specific identification, it's important to include all key stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much, Stelina. Barbara, we'll go to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Allow me just a short introduction. I'd like to share with you today some experiences from the Life Foster project, which is coordinated by ENAIP-Net, a major Italian VAT provider and a member of the European Vocational Training Association. I'd like to thank you, the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, for giving this opportunity. And now, I totally agree with what I was hearing from the first and second contribution today. Actually, in our experience, green skills are acted rather than learned. This is why they must be developed since childhood through experience and examples of positive behaviors. Because of that, apprenticeships and work-based learning represent the ideal environment where green skills are nurtured, since they favor individuals' awareness and empowerment through direct practice and experience. Following this philosophy, in the Life Foster project, we develop green skills for food waste prevention in the restaurant industry to activate a shift to circular economy. We see the restaurant as the intersection between food production and food consumption in coherence with the farm-to-fork strategy. Restaurants are indeed an ideal context for us for three main reasons. Firstly, wasted food has a strong moral connection because of the contrast with people's starvation. Secondly, the human component makes the difference because creativity and practice are key in the application of green solutions in the restaurant industry, while technology is a bit less important. So we could say that restaurants are sort of green labs. And finally, the results of one's own actions are immediately visible in the restaurant industry. This enhances awareness of one's own role and responsibility, for instance, in food waste prevention. Please, could you show my first slide and zoom it a little bit? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. As you can see, each solution refers to specific roles. And all these roles cooperate. Please remove the slide now. Thank you very much. So we have seen also that to favor the development of green skills, VET providers have to agree on common and recognizable values shared also by apprentices and apprenticeship companies. In Life Foster, for example, we are drafting a manifesto calling restaurant professionals for action. They will declare their commitment to prevent food waste through specific initiatives and find a common ground where they can cooperate. That being said, I believe the European Alliance for Apprenticeships is a perfect framework to push and strengthen a shared view of green skills among the different stakeholders, thus building value systems. I think there should be more green-oriented opportunities for cooperation to identify the skills supporting the transition to green and circular economy with a holistic vision. So, to sum up, green skills don't belong to specific jobs, but must be spread through all organizations, levels, and roles. Ultimately, they should form citizens' behaviors and represent a legacy for future generations. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. There have been some pre-submitted questions, so I'd like to pose one of them to both of you. And the question is, are green skills in apprenticeships transferable between sectors? So maybe, Stellina, if you would like to say just a couple of words to that, and then maybe Barbara, you could complement that too.
Yes, thank you. So again, I think we should go back to how we define the green skills. So if we are discussing the, let's say, more soft skills softer green skills that are applicable to all occupations and all citizens, that are relevant to raising environmental awareness, etc., then for sure they are. And they should be, because they should be the basis and included in all types of qualifications. When we are discussing more job specific, then when we view the transferability, which is a significant element for sure, we should mainly view it from the angle of transparency of the apprenticeship qualifications. So if apprenticeships are designed based on a clear added value that offers attains a specific qualification based on learning outcomes, which have been designed and agreed with the social partners, so it reflects the labor market needs at regional, even local level, as well as the possibly specific needs of the apprentice. Then we can be more sure that we are heading towards transferability of the attained green skills.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's really about considering what's needed and what the individuals need for each sector. So Barbara, maybe you'd like to say something else to that.
Well, actually, I must say that I agree with what Stelina was saying. According to our experience, green skills are very closely connected with behaviors, as I was saying before, and also with mindsets. Therefore, once you adopt a strategy to develop a green mindset, which is very difficult to attain, I think, and this is referred to a specific sector, maybe you can transfer this strategy also to other sectors. I think also that the objective observation is very important. I would say that is crucial to develop this green mindset that I was saying. Well, through monitoring and measuring, I think that the people can achieve a fuller awareness of what their responsibility is inside the organization.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, it's almost like a green mainstreaming. Okay, so thank you very much to Stelina and Barbara. I'd like to turn now to Chiara and Richard. Given the diversity of skills that we're talking about here, depending on sector, industry, job, country, the next question I wanted to ask is, what are the main challenges of integrating green skills in apprenticeship learning environments, curricula and skills profiles? So I'd like to address that first of all to Chiara.
Thank you, Andrea, for inviting me, and hello everybody. I live and work in Umbria, a region in Italy which is an economic landscape mainly made up of small and medium enterprises and micro family-run enterprises. So my contribution will come from this background. We ended third last in the last 5 years for green investment compared to other Italian regions. And the composition of the business sector is itself a challenge in our case. As a second consideration, preliminary consideration, I would like to point out that the management of such small companies and businesses are too often use or adopt apprenticeship schemes more for the convenience of the working conditions and the cost of labor, for instance, than for the learning component and potential it has for the candidates and the new workers. So we have to work on this first of all, and it is a matter of mindset, as the other speakers were saying before. If we refer to the two pillars that were mentioned of the green skills, so the transversal ones and those more technical and job related, the training we deliver to apprentices as part of our accredited offer covers mainly the non-technical competencies, so the transversal and basic skills, and includes a green lifestyle and a waste management unit as part of this offer, which is within the social and civic competencies area of competencies that we deliver. It is an attempt, of course, to foster the acquisition of this new mindset, because as you can imagine, among the basic skills, this covers just a very small part in terms of time and resources also. So it is an attempt to foster the acquisition of this new mindset on sustainability and environmental issues. So to increase, first of all, individuals' awareness of the ongoing processes and the need to go towards a greener economy and society. We should promote with a stronger power this part of the transversal competencies, because companies have difficulties understanding how they can benefit directly and their businesses can benefit from this. And when it comes to the second pillar of green skills, we deliver training courses with internships for unemployed young people and adults, such as pest control, disinfection technician with a focus on environmental safeguarding and sustainability, or other courses such as energy manager, technician for the reduction, reuse and recycling of waste, and eco brand management technician. And again, a challenge that we face when it comes to find and select partners, company partners for hosting the trainees. These companies too often go for instance, for the marketing people in eco branding and this kind of stuff, because there is a difficulty again in understanding how their business can grow and can benefit from it. So this is something I wanted to share with you. And an example, but maybe it's I'm taking too much time, so I will. An example that I wanted to share with you comes from gender competencies. So we have an experience working and cooperating within a European project financed by the Right to Quality Citizenship Program. We work together with social partners, trade unions and employer associations to redefine the competencies already set for given professional profiles. In that case, it was for people in charge of the guidance from school to training providers and HR departments. So what we did was to take all the competencies that already that providers refer to and redefine them, adding the sort of qualitative curvature to the structure of the profile. So specifying the taking care of. So how are you supposed to deliver, to perform in your daily job? So to avoid, in that case, was of course discrimination based on gender. And I think something similar could help us in facing the challenges we have also with the green economy. Thank you for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Chiara. It's very interesting. It's interesting to hear about the collaboration activities like that. So I'd now like to turn to Richard.
Very much, Andrea. Just there you go. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for the invitation. I think a key thing for us is how we can, I think, build things both from the bottom up, but make things work at a sector level nationally and a sector level at European level as well. And that's certainly how the important level for us. But firstly, from the workplace level, I think it's interesting that people were saying it's difficult to define these green skills so clearly, and that in some senses there's got to be green skills that are relevant to all jobs. And I think that's important to look. It's possible for trade unions and employers to work together at a local level to try and address the issue and identify the skills and identify the issues that need to be addressed. And if you take the example of of the UK, there was a considerable amount of success in trade unions initially promoting and creating learning reps, so local workplace representatives who discussed training and promoted training to workers. And this was followed then a bit later. The level of integration and success is very much different, but the idea then was also that you could have local green reps, so people who are really focused on the green challenges at the workplace level and what could be done there. And I think if you've got that level of activity at local level, that can then just feed up through the system. But that system, I think, is only going to work effectively if you've got effective social partners at the sector level. And I think we've noticed in the electricity sector, where we have a strong social dialogue. We work with a fellow sister federation industrial on the workers' side, and with Euroelectric on the employer side. And there's been a number of initiatives in recent years, training and apprenticeships, and I think a good idea of how the challenges facing the sector, including to a certain extent green skills, but also even more digital skills, I think. On the other hand, if you look at the sector where we're also very active, waste and wastewater, there the strength of the sort of sectoral dimension is a bit weak, and certainly in the waste sector very much more decentralized, and I think that's where the challenge there is to build on that and have a much more effective social dialogue from national through to European level, so we can begin to address the skills. I mean, particularly in the waste sector, there's a lot of discussion around the circular economy at the moment, and we've just produced a report looking particularly at health and safety, a key element of training, cleared health and safety in the circular economy, and raise a number of questions about whether or not that's being specifically addressed. So I think that's they're the key issues for us, and I mean, highlighting maybe I think it's a recent report from Germany about the effectiveness of works councils and trade unions at the workplace level, highlighting the fact that generally, when you have that degree of social dialogue, it makes it much more effective to respond to challenges and restructuring, and clearly having effective training within that is going to be an important way of dealing with the restructuring that we're facing in terms of the green and digital transitions. So I think they're the 2 points that I'd like to stress from our perspective.
Okay, thanks very much, Richard. And yeah, from what you're saying, it seems like very much sort of grassroots in the workplace action is very effective. A couple of questions came in before this event. So there's one here which actually builds on what you were saying, Richard, about the social partners' role. And the question is, how do we strengthen the social partners' role in green reforms of the apprenticeship systems? That might be quite difficult for you to answer, but I don't know whether you have any thoughts. And maybe after Richard, you've spoken, maybe Cara would like to say something too.
Well, I mean, the recent report that we produced with Euroelectric highlights the fact that, and it's not just highlights about the social work to work together and in coordination with providers of training. And I think it identified the fact that in some countries that's a bit weak and needs to be improved in terms of the social partners working more effectively together. Now, I think it's part of, it boils down to a bit of the sort of the process and structure of the industry. And again, I mean, this brings in the issue of the degree of involvement of small and medium enterprises. The smaller, if you've got decentralization, smaller organizations, that's a challenge in itself to improve social partnership. So I think what we try to encourage at through in our sectors is the sectoral, I mean, if not agreements, at least sectoral discussions and consultation. That you have to bring employers of all levels together, trade unions of it may involve several different trade unions in the same sector, but that basic coordination has got to start so you can have these discussions. And if you can build that at national level, then you get a much better coordination at European level. And I think in a number of our sectors we've made progress on this, but there's still some way to go in other sectors.
Okay, thanks very much. And Chiara, you can broaden it out to general actors if you like. It might be quite difficult for you to just talk on behalf of the social partners, but I'd be keen to hear your comments.
I can't, of course, talk on behalf of social partners, but I agree with what Richard was saying. And I think it's a matter of quality of our training offer and apprenticeships teams. So we need to work strongly to cooperate with social partners and in the design and in the delivery of the training offer. And yes, I think it's very important. And VET providers cannot be left alone, let's say, on this. So there must be some sort of coordination coming also from public authorities at different levels, depending on the structure of that sector in the various countries.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here, and it sort of builds on that as well, about who should take responsibility for training the workforce to be prepared for the green transition. Should it be public authorities? Should it be businesses? From what you were saying, Chiara, it sounds like everybody bears some responsibility. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it's a shared responsibility. I think the initiative should be strongly supported by public authorities because they have the capacity to put all the actors at the same table and try to initiate this cooperation and discourse. Something, if I'm not wrong, Stelina was referring to is the matter of transparency. And the cooperation among stakeholders on this can also lead to good results in terms of transparency across our systems. It's very important, but it's a shared responsibility. It cannot be anyone left alone on this.
Okay, thank you. Would you agree with that, Richard? I'm sure you would, that it's a shared responsibility that you need to work with employers as a trade union organisation.
Yes, I mean, it's certainly shared between public authorities and employers in terms of coordination and funding, but clearly there's the there's got to be a role there for the trade unions in, as I say, it's in providing input in trying to get identifying the skills that are required. So I think joint, but certainly I think a big role for public authorities along with employers in that.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Chiara and Richard, for that. We'll now move on to a section where the panel gets to answer some questions that were submitted before the event from our audience. So thank you for submitting questions. Thank you to everybody. So one question that caught my eye was one from the Innovation Centre for Vocational Education and Training in Spain. And the question is, how can vocational education and training providers contribute to the acquisition of green skills? And what sort of recommendations could be given to these VET providers? I'd like you all to answer this time, and I'll come to each of you in turn. So I'd like to start with Barbara, if I may.
Thank you very much for this question, which is very interesting, actually. So I believe that in order to nurture individuals' green skills and to stimulate their further development, objective measurements, for instance, monitoring the impact on specific environmental issues, is fundamental. Measuring and monitoring give an immediate feedback on the results of one's own work. For example, the answer to the question, how much waste do I generate when I work, which we are seeing in the project Life Foster. Therefore, we must use instruments to measure and incorporate those instruments into the processes. As I was saying, in the Life Foster project, measuring is key to develop awareness. I will quickly show you this with a slide. If you please can show my second slide. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Here we can clearly see all negative effects of food waste globally. And however, this picture remains only abstract as long as we don't connect it with a tangible experience apprentices can make in a restaurant organization, in a restaurant kitchen, and in practical activities. Okay, if you want to remove the slide, thank you very much. So you can realize the waste you generate when you, for example, observe the amount of remains, scraps, and leftovers, or what you don't use in your, which was stored before. So this is very important. Observation and adoption of monitoring tools can intensify the effect of the experience apprentices can make. And this is why our project has developed a food waste monitoring tool, which is called Food Waste Flow Balance. This tool combines food waste, water, and energy consumption with costs. In this way, apprentices become aware not only of the quantity of food, water, and power they are wasting or saving, but also of the money that is connected with this food, water, and power. So you waste money or save money according to the solution that you will use. In this case, monitoring increases the awareness of the role and responsibilities of an apprenticeship in the context where he or she works. And this is also in connection with the slide I was showing before about the solutions that you can adopt to prevent food waste. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. I'll turn to Stellina now, if I may.
Yes, thank you. As we all know here, the challenge with apprenticeships is the fact that the training has two providers. So there is the vet provider, the vet institution, and the company. So what would be the ideal way to go is that a triangulation is necessary between the two providers and the learner in order to ensure that one can grasp all the benefits and the opportunities from including the green skills in a specific curriculum. And what is important also to keep in mind for the vet providers are that they are also a very important actor in a skills ecosystem. So we've seen in our work in CEDEFOP in the Skills for Green Jobs report that the cases across the countries examines where there is a very solid collaboration of social partners, of course, public authorities and vet providers, specifically for green skills, are not that common as they could be. So vet providers are a vital part of the actors that need to be involved in all stages of the learning journey, from designing of curricula, updating occupational standards to, of course, delivery. And let us not forget the immensely important role of trainers and vet teachers that also need to be trained and heard of their needs in order to deliver the updated or even new curricula that have to be implemented in order for apprentices to gain solid knowledge on new or updated green skills.
Okay, thank you very much, Stellina. I'll turn to Richard now, if I may.
Yes, I think maybe two things. I think absolutely that there needs to be a sort of good and improved consultation with social partners at as far as possible at every level. And I think because of, as been said before, the nature of these green skills, I think it's important that there should be some cross-sector coordination as well. It's clear that there may be some variation from one sector to another, but there are some common elements. And so if we can create good consultation that crosses across sectors, then I think that'll be of enormous benefit.
Okay, thanks, Richard. And I'll turn to Chiara now. Thanks.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues' call for a reinforced alliance among the different actors and also across sectors, as Richard was saying. And from my perspective, web providers can play a role in empowering apprentices and trainees in bringing innovation in terms of greening and green skills into companies where they will enter. So this is something we as web provider can do, and also, of course, be an example. So starting from the way we deliver our trainings, we organize our work. So be green ourselves first, so that also the young people and the adults that we come across with for training purposes can experience what we recommend them to bring into companies.
Okay, thanks. And thanks everybody for your thoughts on that question. There's a couple of follow-up questions here. We've got a little bit of time, so I can ask at least one of them. And there's one about how the panel sees the role of small and very small enterprises during reskilling and upskilling in terms of green skills in the framework of apprenticeships. And maybe Chiara, I can turn to you first, because I know that you mentioned SMEs before, so maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Thank you, Andrea. Yes, small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises need to be on this challenge of greening our economy and making it more sustainable. So I think it's important for all the actors to support them in understanding how their businesses can grow and benefit also from an economical point of view if they introduce innovation in terms of greening their processes and procedures. It is also linked to what Barbara was saying, if I'm not wrong, about restaurants. So showing what more sustainable behaviors and procedures and work organizations can lead to also for small and medium enterprises. In our region, for instance, there is the good practice, let's say, of the textile sector, which is also made of very small enterprises that often work for bigger companies and for fashion enterprise companies. So they are forced in a way to innovate their processes, because of course the big companies that we all know now are trying to sell themselves as green clothes producers, etc. So this also is a factor that can support the innovation in very small enterprises. This is just an example, but it very much depends on the context and the sector, etc. But I think they need to be supported in order to play a key role. And yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yes, obviously, it's clear that SMEs do need maybe more support. Stellina, maybe I could turn to you for the view from CEDIFOP, whether you've engaged with this issue at all.
Yes, thank you. Due to, if one can say, the inherent link of apprenticeships with the labor market. They are very, very relevant and can be very, very beneficial for SMEs, particularly for micro enterprises. But as Chiara very correctly pointed out, there are many challenges that these companies face, and they have been now exaggerated due to the COVID-19 impact. We can be optimistic, but still the world and Europe in particular faces the very adverse economic effects, which limits, of course, the available apprenticeship opportunities. Again, I will highlight the importance of creating an apprenticeship culture, because Chiara pointed out, and I agree, that first of all, SMEs and especially micro companies that have several challenges to face, even in, let's say, high economic climates, they need to be convinced and increase their awareness of why it's important and how an apprenticeship that will be enriched with, let's say, the acquisition of green skills, how is this relevant for their specific goals and local realities. So the role, again, of actors such as the chambers of commerce, employers organizations, red providers is important in order to create an apprenticeship culture that will, let's say, embrace small and medium enterprises. And I would like also to highlight, to build on the point made by Richard earlier, that cross-sectoral collaboration can definitely be beneficial, and this may be even more important for employers of this scale that can benefit more from larger companies regarding sharing experience, increasing understanding. They could even in, let's say, sectors as textiles that Chiara mentioned, benefit from discussing with other SMEs from the value chain of the sector, because let us not forget that many times what we call sector can be a part of a larger, of course, chain of other sectors that the skill needs have spillover effects, and they create, let's say, demands for update of curricula in other sectors. So I would say, and instead of had indeed done a very interesting line of work on SMEs and apprenticeships particularly, it's important to strengthen the partnerships, the intercompany collaborations that could all really support especially micro companies, in understanding the importance and definitely support them in actually overcoming the, let's say, more technical difficulties in taking over apprentices, specifically for greening ways of producing and ways of designing.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I could quickly turn to Barbara. Obviously, lots of SMEs in the restaurant sector. I don't know whether you have any views to share on this, but I'll come to you now.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. I think well, what has been already shared by the previous speakers is absolutely true. I would like to stress particularly the role of cooperation between different stakeholders. I mean, I think today, for instance, the European Alliance for Apprenticeships is giving the opportunity to exchange opinions between different people from different organizations, and we are going more or less on the same stream, I would say. And I think the role of other platforms as well, like the platforms on circular economy. There is a European and also in Italy, an Italian stakeholders platform for circular economy. These are good opportunities, according to my experience, to share views and see what is important to achieve, and also to bring to the top of the policymakers' agenda in terms of changing the perspectives and changing the culture, because I'm stressing again this thing, but it's very, very important to achieve this sort of shift, because a new green and circular mentality helps also to make a real change in the economy, and we are all on board. There's nobody is excluded from this type of change if we want to achieve a green society, green and circular society. So in terms of this, also SMEs and micro enterprises must be on board and activate this type of dialogue with SMEs and micro enterprises is crucial. Otherwise, a good part of the economy would get lost. So this is particularly true in the restaurant industry, obviously, as you were already saying. And we are trying, I was mentioning before this zero food waste manifesto. This is something where we want to challenge a little bit restaurant professionals, and at the same time, we want to find a common ground to find new solutions. And I believe this particular period where we are facing with so many difficulties and challenges could open a little bit a window to start and see what new solutions we can adopt in order to be more sustainable in the end, both economically and environmentally. So the importance of stressing the fact that sustainability is both environmental and economical and social must be very, very clear. So this is my mind.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Richard, if I could just turn briefly to you. I'm not sure SMEs feature too heavily in public services, but I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, maybe briefly. I mean, union organisation in SMEs and smaller enterprises has always been a challenge, but I think it's important that, to note the good practice in some countries. I think, particularly Italy and France, where you have sectoral employer organisations, very good sector collective bargaining agreements, and that's one way to address the training issue. And certainly although traditionally we've been negotiating with big employers in electricity, for example, I think the trend is in that sector for quite a lot of decentralisation. So I think employer organisations need to be ready to adapt, and the more SMEs and smaller organisations that are integrated in that way, the more likelihood is we'll have a good trade union employer relationship at sector level.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you to all the speakers for that session. Very interesting thoughts and comments. To round up this discussion, I'm going to challenge the speakers a little bit now. And I'm going to say, if you had to put into a tweet, so only 140 characters, what you've learned in today's session, what your key takeaways have been, what would that tweet be? That's quite demanding, I know, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to come up with something succinct, short and punchy. So I don't know who would like to go first. Shall I just pick on somebody? Maybe Chiara, would you like to go first?
Thanks for choosing me to be the first on this.
Sorry about that.
Just keywords, I would say. So work together, take examples from next door, because also for small and medium enterprises, it's very important. It can be done here, and we are all in it.
Yeah, that's good. Great.
It was not easy.
Yeah, no, I know. Thanks very much for going first. Okay, Barbara, maybe you'd like to go next.
Okay, it's really challenging. I would say that we need research and social partners and business also partners and vocational training providers in order to get to this new cultural change and have and use also the education and vocational training as a lever to activate this change. It's absolutely important to have this part, to have all parties on board equally. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Stelina, your thoughts on this?
Well, my video doesn't deny to start.
That's okay. We can hear you though.
It's indeed challenging because I've learned a lot and heard many interesting messages. I would say something like effective partnerships and stagnant social dialogue, along with triangulation between the two learning providers of apprenticeships with the learner, can really support the transmission of green skills through apprenticeships. I don't know if that's 140 characters.
It could be whittled down, I'm sure, but thanks very much. Okay, Richard, you've had the most time to speak, so let's hear what you've got to say. Well, it's time to think, I should say.
Yes, if you have more time, sometimes you end up starting again from scratch and redrafting. Local sector and cross-sector coordination are essential for effectively delivering green skills.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you very much, all four of you, for doing that, bearing with me and doing that rather difficult exercise, being put on the spot, but thank you. Okay, I'm now going to, before we turn to the Q&A from the audience, we're going to have a sort of Slido moment. So I'm hoping that people are familiar with Slido, but it's very easy to operate. So if you go to Slido and put in the hashtag put in the number hashtag 99462 to enter the event, and then to answer this question, which is, in 2 to 3 words, what is the most important factor to ensure green skills in the apprenticeship sector? So you can respond during this next session, which is going to be a Q and answer session, and then we will return at the end of that session to have a look at your responses. It could be in the form of a word cloud. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to some questions that have been posted during the chat. Just looking at them now. This is sort of live, so bear with me while I sort them out. Okay. Right. There's a question about could the transition to green skills be supported by exploitation of EU-level frameworks such as DigiComp, ECF, Entrecomp, LifeComp in the training design for apprenticeships? So it's about using EU-level frameworks. You know, so using the resources, I suppose, and the what is available at the European level. I don't know who wants to go first with that. Maybe nobody's smiling and raising their hand. I can see you all actually. So does somebody maybe want to raise their hand? Just manually, I can see you. Okay, Chiara, thank you.
I can say something on this, again, from my perspective, of course. I believe frameworks as the ones that were mentioned are very important, and they are important also in the case of green skills, of course. Again, I see a challenge behind that because, and a role for that providers in this. So it is very important that these frameworks can be understandable for all the parts involved in the process. So, and in particular, I am referring to companies and enterprises. So something that social partners and that providers could do is to make them more easily transferable to the local context and into the needs of the different stakeholders involved. So they are very important because they can ensure transparency and they give us a common ground, common starting point across Europe. Then it's on us how to implement these frameworks and how to make them an effective tool, working tool in our daily job.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Chiara. Would anybody else like to respond to that? You can just, yes, Richard, okay.
Well, not au fait with the part of the question, the frameworks that were mentioned in the question, but maybe looking at it from a different angle. I mean, the framework that works for us is the social dialogue, and I think if you particularly look at how we work together in the electricity sector on this training and apprenticeships issue, I think that it's an important important structure for dealing with this at European level in each sector. And I think so. You know, the challenge for us is to make it work in other sectors as well. And at the moment, it's something. You know, a challenge for us is to develop social dialogue in the waste sector, which I think will be really crucial for dealing with issues in the circular economy.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm not going to ask all of you to answer each question, but if either Barbara or Stelina would like to say something, just raise your hand. Barbara, please go ahead.
Well, actually, I think that there should be something also incorporated into the European qualification framework. I mean, those skills will be gradually being developed, all through the years. As I was saying, I would really start from childhood onwards. So it takes all through the levels of the European qualification framework. And as long as you are developing your capacity, skills, your knowledge, etc., you are getting more and more involved into green. And it should be something that you, first of all, experience as a child and take your experience with you all through your life. And obviously, you will also increase your green skills according to the type of job you will picking or the type of function you will cover inside an organization, etc. But as I was saying, I think that nobody should be left aside, because it's very important that everybody knows one's own responsibility in the world, I would say, because we are all biologically connected.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Stelina, did you want to add anything to what people have said already?
I will just add that indeed, I agree with Chiara that frameworks can for sure be very useful. I'm not sure I even catch which framework it was referred to in the question. I apologize. But it's important also to highlight that for apprenticeships in the member states where apprenticeships regard a clear independent system, then it's proved to be, let's say, possibly easier to integrate new skills. And this is also true for the green skills. So in the member states, in the cases where apprenticeships have dedicated programs and dedicated curricula, it can be probably easier to use a framework to see which elements maybe they will need to be adjusted to regional or even local needs, etc. So for sure, no framework can be a panacea, but it can help granted that there are the grounds and the arrangements that can truly serve the potential of apprenticeships.
Okay, thanks very much. We're slightly running out of time on this Q&A session, but I would like to just pose one more question to the panel, and it's about green skills that change business models. So what happens if a company's business model changes fundamentally because of the green skills that are needed and the green skills that come into the workplace, and whether employers should get help with that? If I could have just brief views on that. So, working with employers, helping with employers whose businesses are just changed completely. Who would like to start on that, just very briefly? And keep it brief, because we are running out of time. You don't all have to answer either, but maybe one person. Yes, Stellina, you raised your hand.
If I may say very, very briefly, indeed, it's one of the definitions. You see, I have a thing for definitions. It's one of the definitions of a transition, for sure. It's that it can affect business models. The extent to which this change is noticeable really affects working conditions, working relations, even the products, etc. Depends on the sector, the member state, or even the region and the local states. Now, it is true that I think the European Commission has already identified the importance of not only recognizing the needs for this stemming from these transitions, but also the potential ways to support the regions and the employers that will be of let's say need for such support. Now, specifically for apprenticeships, indeed, these can have an effect, even to the extent that these companies can offer apprenticeships. But then again, just to focus it on apprenticeships, I would say that it's a matter of having the infrastructure, the close collaboration partnership network, specifically regarding apprenticeships, that can, let's say, in a timely manner, understand the change that is coming and see how to better tackle the challenges that will stem from this change in the business models that are caused due to the green transition. And for sure, there are the great support packages by the European Commission, but in order to understand the needs and challenges at the local level specifically, and then it will go to the regional and the national one, it's important to have those partnerships in place. And ideally for apprenticeships viewed as independent systems, and it would be easier to make the changes even in the occupational profiles and the modes for provision of learning, in order to disrupt to the extent possible the least disruption to the provision and the quality of apprenticeships.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I need to move on now because we're running out of time. So thank you to the audience for submitting questions. And I'm sorry if we haven't answered your question. We have made a note of all the questions submitted through the chat. So thank you to the four of you for answering those questions. I'm now going to have a look, hopefully, at the Slido results. Yeah, so here we go. I'll just say a couple of words on that so we can see awareness, collaboration, innovation. They seem to be leading in terms of mentions. So we have other things too: partnerships, supporting vet schools, involving all players, political involvement, lots and lots of different things there. So you can carry on putting your input into that. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Norbert again, to maybe he would like to give a view on that word cloud as well, to see if he agrees or disagrees. And And you're welcome, of course, to make other comments. So floor is yours again, Norbert.
Thank you, Andrea. And how could I be surprised that awareness is the word? Because I think the whole campaign where the Commission invests a lot of energy and also budget is about awareness raising, about the importance of vocational skills, and of course, including apprenticeships. So I'm very happy to see that that is confirmed, because that is really the key word of the campaign. Collaboration stands for itself. That's also the main principle of the European Alliance for Apprenticeship. And when we talk about innovation, which is also the third word, yes, when we talk about green, I think we need a lot of innovation. Now, if I may just summarize the discussion, and we had 3 blocks. What are the skills for the green economy, then the challenges of integrating green skills, but also recommendation to VET providers. I cannot, by the way, we get a nice summary for all of you, so I will not make a full summary. But I would like to maybe quote or highlight again some key words of our speakers. If I start with Stelina, she was not only mentioning also the importance of the role of a culture, of apprenticeship culture for SMEs, but what she highlighted, which we could not discuss too much, is the role of teachers and trainers. I think she was fully correct to mention this dimension, which was not really part of the discussions. I would really like to quote Barbara, because I found that really amazing when she said about the green skills. It's rather acted than learned. And she directly linked that to the direct practices and experience in an apprenticeship. So that for me is, I think, very important, and that shows also that apprenticeship can really play an important role. And I think if I move on to Chiara, of course, it was directly related also to the role of SMEs, where the learning component needs to become more important, and also that she said that the VET providers can bring in the innovation which is needed to green our economy. And Richard, I think, yes, the role of social partners, we cannot underline the importance of the social partners, also as a tool, as a model, which is very successful, and where it needs to be strengthened. We should also invite our public authorities to support social partners, that they can play their role. Also at sectoral level, that I think was a clear message from you as well, sectoral consultation. I think we cannot discuss all the aspects, and I think we need to continue. It was the first time that we have discussed the role of particularly also the VET providers in the game, but some questions were quite interesting also in the chat room. What is, if the business model changes, what is the role of the employer? What is the role of the trade unions? And let's not forget, what can really the young people, the apprentices themselves, contribute to the greening? I think they have a really strong opinion on that, and they can only help us in this common journey. Now, just 2 last sentences. Of course, the renewed alliance will focus more on the commitments on green and digital, and also focus on the economic sectors that will be at the front line of the transition to a climate neutral Europe. I think only together, if I may say so, I mean it like that, only together we can build the future-proof apprenticeships and contribute to a world which is the world of tomorrow, which is greener, fairer, and better. I would like to thank you a lot for participating in this live discussion, and my big thanks go, of course, to the moderator, to all the speakers, to the whole support team behind the scenes, Mariana and Kerstin and Luca, and also, of course, to the audience to have listened to us, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I give the floor back to the moderator, because I think she will announce the next live discussion. Thank you so much.
That's right. Thank you very much, Norbert. And from my side as well, thank you to everybody. Thanks to the speakers in particular, so Stelina, Chiara, Barbara, and Richard, and Norbert, of course, and to all of you in the audience for participating and engaging in this discussion. So we'll take a break now. There will be a further live discussion looking at digital skills and apprenticeships, and that will start in around 15 minutes, 3:30. So take a short break, stay online, and come back at 3:30 for the next session. So thank you very much.